Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The New Left today on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hello, people who are watching. Nice to see you here. We've got Noli D with us, and we've got another special guest with us, Alex Vitale, who is going to be talking to us about a lot of things that have been going on about, this is a Copaganda episode. So what cops have been doing and such. And let's bring him on.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
So, Professor Vitale, would you like to go over a little bit about what you do and just your background and?
Okay. So I'm a professor of sociology at Brooklyn College and the CUNY Graduate Center, and a visiting professor at London South Bank University in the UK. And I run a policy shop called the Policing and Social Justice Project. And I'm the author of The End of Policing, among other things, which obviously, as the name suggests, lays out a program for reducing our reliance on policing in as many ways as we possibly can.
All right. And recently you put out a response to all of the people who were calling for a left-right alliance because there was a call out from Marjorie Taylor Greene about defunding the FBI after Trump was raided. And so you put out an article on Truth Dig, and I'm going to share Truth Out. Truth Dig, but Truth Out, and it was called the FBI should be abolished, but none of the reasons have to do with Trump. And I found that I read the article and it was really good. I agree with it, but I wanted to get a couple more things. I just wanted to ask a couple more things, and hopefully we can guide the audience a little bit to the article. And but so one of the things that I really enjoyed about the article is you get a lot of history about the FBI, and you also gave some examples of some recent examples, especially with Trump going into cities. And one thing I wanted to ask you about was the fact that you seem to unlike a lot of people who just think that it's just Republicans, you did make a point to say that all these cities that were Democratic cities, all the Democratic mayors actually embraced the FBI operation that was going on. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure.
How Democrats do that?
Sure. Well, and the history of the FBI is very bipartisan as well. Both Democratic and Republican presidents have used the FBI as a political tool. And what I highlighted in the article, though, was that as Trump was beginning his reelection campaign, he knew he needed more. He knew he was in trouble, and he thought, or his advisors thought, well, let's do the tried and true, war on crime kind of stuff. Let's try to gin up a lot of fear of crime, which now Biden has done more successfully than Trump was able to. And let's, in the process, and this is often the way it is with the war on crime, is let's frame the country's problems not as they're being the result of deindustrialization, disinvestment, austerity, racial segregation. No, the problems of America are problems of crime, cartels, gangbangers, this sort of thing. And he very strategically focused this issue exclusively on Democratic-controlled cities as a way of signaling, these Democratic cities are out of control, but I have the solution, which is flood these cities with police. So he created Operation Relentless Pursuit, and it involved a big infusion of federal law enforcement and money to beef up local policing, all of which was under the control of local federal prosecutors. And what was interesting to me, because I was involved in an effort to resist this in the individual cities across the country, like Cleveland and Baltimore and Memphis and Albuquerque and Kansas City, and Milwaukee, was the degree to which, with some exception in Baltimore, the degree to which these local Democratic mayors just opened their arms to Trump's reelection strategy and said, oh, sure, yeah, let's have more police. I'm happy to frame the problems of my city as problems of crime and predators and drugs that can be fixed by policing and mass incarceration. And that's really the bipartisan consensus. And we see that so clearly with Biden's 100,000 more cops proposal that came out on Tuesday, is that both parties have just capitulated to a kind of Willie Horton politics of blaming the country's problems on poor non-white people and holding out the solution of ever more invasive and intensive policing.
Yeah, and one thing that I did, I watched the interview you did with Katie Halper, and you were talking about Willie Horton, and I don't think a lot of people know about the Willie Horton thing and how Bush pretty much destroyed Dukakis's campaign, and how ever since then the Democrats since the Democrats are up today are the 90s Republicans. So we have like the tough on crime going on again, and like you just said, that Biden is initiating it even more successful than Trump. And can you elaborate a little bit about what the Willie Horton situation, and for people who don't know about the Dukakis and
So, well, it even begins before that in the Democratic primary, because it was Al Gore who was running in the primary against Dukakis in 1988, who first begins to kind of trot out the Willie Horton thing against Dukakis. And here's the deal, is that Massachusetts had a very well-run work furlough program for people in prison. And there was a lot of evidence that this program was really working. It was reducing recidivism and easing people's transition into living independently after prison. But one person out of a huge number of people, this guy, Willie Horton, did some terrible stuff. You know, he raped someone, and anyway, it was awful. And so the one failure, which of course was racialized as a black man, was held up as being so-called, soft on crime, and was used initially by Gore and then picked up by the Bush campaign and turned into television ads. Lee Atwater was the guy behind it, and many people think played a major role in winning the election. And the reality is that whilst there was this one horrible outcome, if in the process of running such a program, you prevent dozens of other horrible outcomes, then that's a program that is increasing public safety. The problem is you can't document a negative, something that didn't happen because you ran a really good program. You can only document the negatives, the things that did happen. So we know these programs are very effective, but it was used against Dukakis, and Dukakis just didn't do a good job of I think, of answering the charges.
Oh. Yeah. Andrew, did you have anything to add to that, or because I know you are a resident of Massachusetts, so
I was too at the time.
Yeah. So I mean, that's interesting because that was before my time, and I didn't actually realize that Gore. That's new information that I learned.
That's what I just learned too. That Gore was like running for governor of Massachusetts. I didn't know that.
Well, he was running
in the presidential primary.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And
as the Southern governor from, right. So he was trying to trot out his own war on crime.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. So, that information I find particularly interesting because it's not the first time I feel like where almost the Democrats have tried something out very right-leaning, and Republicans have been like, oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll run from here on that. And that's just a perfect example of that. One question I have for you in regards to that, going back on the fact that Democrats have become very, very, running campaigns against, crime is scary, we got to increase cops, and I think we've talked, like, during the whole George Floyd incident, right? There was, of course, a little bit of a rise in some Democratic politicians, not a lot, but some, coining defund the police, right? And there was a lot of people on the streets, right, against cop violence. And then suddenly the Dems took a turn altogether. The people who said were saying defund the police have really not said that in a long time, right?
No.
So what do you think? I'm curious from your perspective, what was that trigger that kind of made all the Democrats suddenly fall back in line and just use Republican talking points that they've been using now for over a year, I'd say, or more?
So, I mean, there weren't really politicians saying defund the police. I mean, maybe at the very local level, a couple of city council people expressed sympathy to this idea. But I mean, no one running for Congress, no one running for governor was saying anything even close to that. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing was this whole saying the Democrats are for defund the police was kind of invented.
Oh, yeah.
By conservatives, because it's just not true. And no police departments were defunded, except in the most marginal ways. One of the most interesting examples actually is Newark, New Jersey, which took 5% of the police budget and created an Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery that has been incredibly successful. And I think they're going to try to take more money out of the police budget there because it's really reducing the violence and there's widespread community support for it. But they don't use those three words to fund the police. And frankly, I never used those three words before 2020. I mean, that came out of the people on the streets in Minneapolis. And it was something that could fit on a cardboard sign or a Twitter hashtag. But the movement was talking about invest, divest, reimagining public safety, justice reinvestment, that captured more fully this demand to create new infrastructures of public safety. And that's really what's missing from the defund the police slogan, which only has the negative connotation of taking money away from police. Now, what's appealing about that three-word phrase is the way in which it's a very clear rejection of police reform. And that's super important, super important. That represents this really major evolution of thinking within the movement. After Mike Brown was killed in Ferguson and we had the Ferguson uprising, people were calling for like jail killer cops. And the response of liberals and a lot of well-meaning progressives was like, well, we need better training and body cameras and, police review boards and this sort of thing, all of which is nonsense and doesn't work, and certainly not in any meaningful way. And so by the time we get the killing of George Floyd, people in the movement have figured that out. The cops who were involved in the killing of George Floyd had all the reforms. They were wearing body cameras. They had implicit bias training and de-escalation training and mindfulness training, and they were operating under a more restrictive use of force policy and new accountability. All of the reforms have been put in place, and it just made no difference. And so people were signaling, we want something other than police reform. We want to reduce the impact of policing in our lives. So, crime goes up during the pandemic. Unfortunate timing in a sense. And Republicans and conservative Democrats use that to try to disempower the left wing of the party and grassroots movements and the movement for Black Lives.
Well, one thing that was I love in your book how you keep the whole time you keep emphasizing that people can't understand the current police system without understanding its history and how it has been historically been used as a tool to keep inequality. But another thing is that I really enjoy the fact that a lot of people like to frame they throw a lot of people under the bus from the 90s crime bill when they talk about the fact that a lot of the Black leaders traded in the communities, and one thing that you do point out is the fact that they were asking not just for police, like for safer neighborhoods, for protection from police. They were asking for libraries. They were asking for more resources for the neighborhoods, and that gets left out of the conversation as well. That these communities also are asking for those things, not just policing, because that's a lot. You hear that from like you said, a lot of Democrats, like Eric Adams, for example, is one of those type of Democrats who was just like, yeah, we want more policing, but he fails to mention the fact that we want other resources as well.
Yeah, which he's totally failed to deliver on. I mean, this is how it works, right? Adams has no plan to address mass homelessness, no plan to fix the schools, no plans to address economic insecurity among the working class. So he needs police to paper over the consequences of that. He needs police to be able to raid homeless encampments, to harass kids on the streets, to patrol the hallways of schools, because he's not willing to do the hard work of building up those infrastructures that would actually provide real safety and security for people. So it's not just, that he's in bed with the police unions, which he is in some ways, it's that it's at the core of his governing strategy. And that is a very bipartisan problem. Big city mayors across the country, Lori Lightfoot in Chicago and Bowser and all the rest, they don't have a plan. They've given up on the very idea that they could have any meaningful impact on these huge problems. And so policing is essential to keep a lid on the consequences of all this inequality.
Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because I don't know if you saw this article that was not really an article, but this just happened recently, and we have a teen that was punched in the face by a New York police department cop, and the NYPD union may be suing her. So let me see. This is we can hear this. I don't think this has any sound. Okay.
I'm not doing nothing. All right, so don't tell me to back up. I ain't doing no back. I'm right here. I'm cool. You ain't got to block it. You ain't got to block it. If it's the right thing, you're doing the right thing. What the fuck? I'm trying to scare everybody. Like, I'm trying to scare everybody. Like, goddamn.
Oh my God.
You just a little girl, bro. Come on, y'all niggas is wilding. They wilding, my nigga. Y'all wilding, bro.
Yeah, but we're gonna stop it right there. But yeah, so they are talking about suing her when she was clearly just assaulted by a police officer.
I mean, that's what policing looks like, right? That they're using violence to arrest someone. She's the girlfriend. She's upset. So she gets too close. They push her. She pushes back, and then they escalate the use of violence. This is after everyone in the department got de-escalation training, right? Which obviously doesn't work. It's nonsense. The decision to potentially sue her, which I'm pretty sure won't go anywhere, is just driven by the police department as a political force flexing its muscles to push back on any kind of criticism of what they do. So we're in a moment right now where, because the center of the Democratic Party has, fallen back on pro-police mass incarceration as an electoral strategy, then it's open season for the far right to push that envelope as far as they can. And of course, that's one of the fundamental problems with this strategy that Biden and and Pelosi are undertaking, is that what they're doing is they're justifying and empowering the most right-wing elements in the society and saying, oh, actually, they're correct, and we're just going to be more like them. But people who are really committed to that worldview are not going to then switch to vote Democratic, right? They're just going to keep pushing the envelope to the right. Exactly. And I'll just point out that after the 94 crime bill, the Democrats lost control of the House. It was not successful.
I feel like we see these Democrats always are trying to cater to grab Republicans, and they have just become like a moderate version of Republicans. And now the Republicans who are like just deep into the Republican Party are, like you said, they're set. They're not going anywhere. Yeah.
No, it's a very distressing approach. There was an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday that I had some quotes in that laid out a pretty good case for why this is not only bad for people of color, bad for public safety, but it's also just a terrible electoral strategy that's not likely to work.
Oh.
Yeah. And now we're going to get stuck with 100,000 more police, which is going to be an ongoing, budget problem. And just what are they going to do? Increase low-level arrests, drive mass incarceration, and continue to kill 3 Americans every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to shift a little bit to a topic, that when it comes to body cameras on cops, right? So this is a tactic. I feel like this has almost become the go-to for politicians who want to get some credit for addressing police violence, right? If we have them wear body cameras, we could see what the interaction was like and then make a judgment as to what actually happened, right? But one of the things that really stood out about your book is you actually make a very interesting take on body cameras that is not something that is always talked about, right? In mainstream discourse. Wanted you to kind of elaborate a little bit on that and really, talk about sort of your thoughts on body cameras and the nuances within that.
Yeah, well, how many of these horrible incidents are we aware of because they were being videotaped? And in pretty much all these cases, the officer knew they were being videotaped, including George Floyd, including the one we just watched. And it just doesn't make any difference. So here's the thing. Support for body cameras is driven by a kind of procedural justice analysis that says that if we can make policing more accountable, more transparent, that this will lead to a more professional and lawful set of policing practices. And that's what's needed, is we need better policing. No, police are doing exactly what they've been tasked with doing. There is no such thing as better policing. This is what policing looks like. So what we found was that people started doing some studies, and there was a really good one in DC where they used what's called an experimental design, where they picked neighborhoods with similar characteristics, and they gave police in one of the neighborhoods body cameras, and the police in the other similar neighborhood didn't get body cameras. And then over time, and they did this for several neighborhoods, and over time, that we can look to see what impact the body cameras had on things like use of force, complaints against police, etc. So what they found was no effect. Didn't make any difference. And then here's the kicker, is that the city of DC said, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to give body cameras to all our officers. We love them. Why? Because they're using them for evidence gathering.
God.
So body cameras, the main impact of body cameras has been to enhance the surveillance and evidence gathering capacity of local police. No lives have been saved, and nothing has changed for the better.
And then you see police who just flip them off every time. You'll see sometimes when you don't even see what happened, they'll flip them off right before they got in the car. So it's
and then they refuse to release the footage. They edit it, they drag the process out. Yeah.
The cameras mysteriously stop working just at that time.
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that we have them, what we should do as a kind of harm reduction strategy is that we should demand that the police don't have control of the footage, that it goes to an independent agency that safeguards people's privacy, that makes sure the footage is not being used for evidence collection and surveillance, and that sets clear rules for public dissemination of the videos, including giving those directly affected by it immediate access to it.
That would sound like that would actually do something.
It might. And at least it would reduce the ways in which these cameras are just aiding the police, right? So at least it would reduce that.
Yeah.
Noli, did you have anything you wanted to add or ask real fast? I know your audio is good now because I knew you were having issues with that a little bit earlier.
Noli?
Stunned into silence.
Oh no, Noli, can't hear you.
I see you're trying.
Yeah, I hear I hear the background. I hear the mic. It's just I don't think that the.
Well, if you want to put in the private chat what your question is too, we could ask it, Noli, and then that's another option as well.
Okay, how about now?
Yes,
we're good.
Awesome.
We can definitely hear you.
Welcome, Noli. Mic check, Noli. Positive. Okay.
My apologies. So, as far as this, the dash or the dash cam, the body cam thing go, I agree with you 100%. If they can touch it, if they can even so much as review it without being supervised by an outside source, they're going to mess with crap. And I'm sorry, but the FBI, what the hell are they here for? They're supposed to be here for corruption. First and foremost, corruption within our own government system, correct? What are they doing? They are helping the cops by letting them know that, hey, this person just reported you and he's got a good lawyer and you're screwed. You better not, mess around with this. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. They're good for nothing. They're good for, it's a gang. It's a big ass fucking gang. And every single department, every single agency they're there to help each other out. They're there to have each other's backs. And the same with the politicians. I'm sorry, the cops are there to protect the politicians and the bigger business owners' interests. That's it. And because prisons are big business, they are out there protecting big business interests.
I mean, the problem is so much bigger than, prison as a big business. That's just gravy, right? I mean, you're right in this bigger truth about police, including the FBI, exists to protect the politicians and people with wealth and power.
And each other.
Yeah, well, and of course, each other. Now, when we get into the weeds, there's always examples of, the FBI, bringing some consequences to local police. But of course, this is all part of legitimacy.
They're forced to. No, they're forced to because the public knows. We see too much now, and now they are forced to do shit. Before the cameras and everything, dude, the FBI didn't do shit.
Yeah. Well, that's, of course, like what happened to Derek Chauvin, right, who killed George Floyd, is that the department had to turn against him to save itself. And so the FBI is trotted out to show people that the system works in some way, to deflect criticism without actually solving the problem in any meaningful way.
One thing I wanted to bring up really fast is the fact that you were in the book in tandem with the FBI and how we're talking about abolishing it. The fact that if you don't have some type of police reform, it won't matter if the FBI goes away anyway. And one thing that I put this graphic up that I put out of the book as a screenshot. And it said, while COINTELPRO worked to subvert the civil rights movement, it was the Los Angeles police, Chicago, New Orleans, and other cities who staged the raids of the Black Panther chapters, killing and imprisoning many of its local and national leaders. It was local police who violently suppressed anti-Vietnam demonstrations in Chicago, New York, and Washington, and beat and imprisoned civil rights activists in Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery, Alabama. So, without addressing just addressing the FBI without addressing the whole of the policing in the Justice Department itself, it won't change very much.
Yeah, I mean, we have to keep in mind here that the primary function of the FBI from its inception has been the suppression of social movements for justice and freedom. And so they have always worked with local police and with private interests, private security, private companies to carry out that mission. And so this idea that because the far right said defund the FBI, that now we all need to rally around the FBI is, of course, just ludicrous. And of course, that's exactly what Biden said. He's like, we don't want to defund the FBI. We love the FBI, right? So, because the FBI is a central tool for him to manage social problems that threaten, the status quo that he represents.
Now, one thing I wanted to. Now, this isn't recent, but I think that this just highlights, like you're talking about policing in prison systems. I don't know if you're a resident of New York, I think, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And have you heard of his name he was Larry Davis, but he went by I forgot, it was something Hakeem. But he had a shootout. He had a shootout. He was conscripted as a teenager to sell drugs for the cops. And when he said he didn't want to anymore, they came after him. There was a shootout. But he was arrested, but it was a self-defense. But he was paralyzed he was beat by a prison guard in prison and paralyzed, and then eventually he was killed in prison. But I was writing something and I was sourcing that, and
I don't know that case offhand.
Yeah, that case is a pretty intense case, and he said he was forced. He said he was forced into drug dealing by the police, just like a lot of sex workers will have the cops will come around and they will take their cut from drug dealers, sex workers, just so they can keep the corruption going, but they don't really actually do anything about it.
Yeah, so there's a chapter of the book about the war on drugs and a chapter of the book about sex work. And in both cases, when we try to use a prohibitionist model of managing a problem, there's going to be corruption. It's built into the decision. And so police corruption in these areas is endemic and widespread. And every day there's a police officer arrested on drug or sex work related corruption charges. It's just an everyday occurrence. And the solution to that is not to give narcotics units more training and oversight. The solution to that is to end the war on drugs, to get the police out of the drug business, out of the sex work business. And, interestingly, all these people who think, oh my God, civilization will collapse if we don't, use police to enforce our morals. But we did it for gambling. We've decriminalized gambling in the United States. We have legal casinos, legal sports betting. It's legal numbers games all across the country. And while there's things I don't like about gambling because of the economic impact of it, I don't think police should have anything to do with it. And if we look at Portugal, in Europe, they decriminalized all drugs, got police out of the drug business. Civilization did not collapse. It was okay. It's okay. Actually, the results have been very positive. Public health measures have improved. Overdoses have been reduced. Public disorder has been reduced. They're very happy with it. And I was just there this summer and can tell you that, yes, occasionally you see there are people on the street who would be selling you drugs if you wanted, but they don't bother you for the most part. And it's just a more relaxed atmosphere. It's not like this militarized situation with police playing cat and mouse and the drug gangs fighting over. All that went away once they decriminalized drugs. So this is, we just, rather than imagining we're going to fix policing with some training and oversight, we've got to just take things away from them. We got to get them out of schools, out of drugs, out of sex work, out of gang suppression, out of homelessness, out of mental health, and we just keep moving more things out of their remit.
What do you make of, well, I don't know if you follow this, but Gavin Newsom rejecting Californians to be able to have safe injection sites? Yeah, I mean, I think that is in part of the Portugal model, isn't it? So having safe injection sites and having test strips where people can test their drugs to make sure they don't have bad drugs.
This is a crucial harm reduction strategy. I take my lead on these issues from the Drug Policy Alliance and Vocal New York, here where I am, that works every day on these issues. And yeah, these safer consumption sites have been shown to save lives. Newsom knows this. He understands the research. He knows this will save lives. He doesn't care because it's politically dangerous for him to associate himself with the disorderliness and the unsightliness of drug users. So he's chosen to double down on respectability politics in a way that's going to kill people. And then he's doing the same thing on homelessness, right? He's got this bill to allow them to do these, forced internments of homeless people. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous because if they just had places for people to go voluntarily, people would go there. But now they're going to spend 5 times as much per person on creating these forced locked facilities, which they'll never create enough capacity for. It's just more political pandering. They would need tens of thousands of these locked units, which for the cost of that, they could build 100,000 permanent homes for people. So just build 100,000 permanent homes.
Well, one thing is that you bring up the homeless thing and the fact that we do have there is left media who are supposed to be giving information to the people and telling them the right thing, and the fact that we have media hosts on the independent left that are promoting pro-homelessness, pro-homeless and pro-police for dealing with the homeless rhetoric. And I did see that you have responded to some of that, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's very, the article I was reading literally says Gavin Newsom is willing to let Californians die to appease rich elites. So that's on the nose.
We have both political parties have capitulated to the politics of austerity and free markets. to the neoliberal program. They've agreed, they've just accepted this idea that government can't really do anything. We can't bring back public housing. We can't create healthcare for all, right? We can't create family benefits, guaranteed childcare, high quality public education. They've just accepted that none of that is possible because the billionaires don't want it. And so what can they do? Once they accept that, then they're confronted with mass homelessness, mass untreated mental health and substance abuse problems, failed schools, mass involvement in black market activity. And so the only tool that's left to them is policing. So once they accept this kind of neoliberal austerity politics, then they're going to embrace policing. And that's why any move to like reduce our reliance on policing is a program of anti-austerity. It's a program of rejecting the neoliberal consensus.
Noli, did you have anything? If you have any more questions or anything you want to preach, because you're spitting some fire earlier.
I apologize. No, actually, I think him and I are on the same page here. I don't really have any rants. He kind of already did it. He just did it nicer than I would. You know, I'm kind of in your face about it, and he's so polite.
I have, to be honest, I have not heard anyone like talk about like law enforcement and policing in such a like great manner and just like being calm because it does get you riled up like a lot. Like it's an emotional subject. It does get you riled up. I don't know how long I think we're keeping you for 45 minutes. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much time you have left. But Andrew, anything else?
I do need to read stories to my 10-year-old in a minute.
Understood. Now, Andrew, go ahead and ask something if you want to.
I think my last question that I have is one of the things I think that sometimes I hear libertarians have said before is that, sure, abolish the police and then we can make it all privatized, right? Which is horrible on so many different levels, right? And so, and my fear is that narrative may get bigger and bigger, as years go on, right? So I guess from our point of view, right, how do we win the narrative on that when it comes to abolish the police? And I guess what should be the picture, like what should we be saying when we abolish the police? What should the next steps be in a sense in terms of, providing,
Okay, so let's just take a couple of steps back here. So are you aware of some magical switch somewhere that if we could just find it, we could just turn off all police? Which local governments are just waiting for the go sign and then they'll just eliminate their police department? Is there anyone do we have the power to eliminate a police department anywhere?
No.
So this talk about, well, when you eliminate all police, then what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Well, there is no doing that. Right? That is a scare tactic that's been invented by the far right to try to dismantle and discredit this movement. What there is a massive system of policing. And what we have the power to do is to begin to peel off pieces of it as we develop new infrastructures of public safety. So since George Floyd, about 40 cities have replaced their school police departments with counselors and after-school programs and restorative justice initiatives and mental health services. That's great. No private police needed, right? This is creating security in new ways that doesn't require policing. Lots of cities are creating non-police mental health, homelessness, and substance use crisis intervention teams that respond to people in crisis through the 911 system. No police needed.
Mm-hmm.
It's working great. And then we can reduce our police use, right? In some cities, this is 20-25% of what police do every day is going on these calls. As we create these new infrastructures, then we don't need all those police to go on those calls anymore. If we dial back the war on drugs and we put in place harm reduction initiatives, drug treatment on demand, targeted economic development initiatives, then we can get rid of the narcotics units, right? That is what we're talking about here, not the purge, right? This is the libertarian fantasy, because that's what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's their like dark hidden fantasy, right? They've watched too many zombie movies. They think that, society is going to come apart, and it's going to be mano a mano, and everyone better be, full of guns and ammo. And that is not at all what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is creating new infrastructures of public safety, community-based, under community supervision as much as possible. And of course, these ideas are coming from people in very high crime communities who know firsthand how poorly policing works and what is really needed to create safe and secure communities. And when organizing happens in local places around local issues, these ideas are very popular, and we're winning lots of victories every day.
Now, so
wait, we're what? We're winning lots of victories every day. Where are you seeing this? Because I don't.
Everywhere. Name a city. Every day, there's another example of a city that is putting in place exactly the kinds of things that I'm calling for. They're putting new resources into community-based anti-violence initiatives. They're creating mental health non-police crisis teams. They're dialing back school policing. It's happening all over the country.
Yeah, but that's in big cities. And you come to my little town.
Fund the police.
You go to my little town, and that's all we got around here, small towns and woods. We're not getting that. People are still being murdered left and right, and we don't have no dash cams and no body cams. So it's like happenstance that there might be a surveillance camera outside of an apartment building when they murder somebody here. And I've been fighting for 13 years to get body cams and dash cams on our cops in this county, and they don't give a damn.
Well, what I'm suggesting is something really different. Can you tell me roughly where you are?
I'm near Aberdeen, Washington, where like Kurt Cobain is from and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So there are certainly people in Washington State I don't know about in that area who are organizing around alternatives to policing, which is different than saying jail killer cops or body cameras or whatever. What I'm proposing here, and what the movement has been working on, is the development of these non-police alternatives. And this is how we get the police out of our lives. Putting body cameras on them is not the solution. The solution is I don't have to see them. They're not in my community anymore. I don't have to deal with them because I have the things that I need to live a safe and secure existence without them. And so how it starts is a demand around something very specific, like you have in rural areas of Oregon around Eugene, which is, I don't want the police to come when my son is having a mental health crisis. I want a mental health worker to come. And this can be set up. And there are a lot of small towns, small cities that are moving in this direction. the whole county around Ann Arbor, Michigan, just voted to implement this. The rural parts around Houston, Texas, which is Harris County, are implementing a system like this. This is not just big cities. This is unincorporated areas, small towns, but we have to organize around a positive agenda for getting the resources that we really need.
So, before you leave, what do you on Derica Purnell and her? She wrote the Becoming Abolitionist. Where do you stand on her? I don't know if you've read that before.
Yeah, no, Derek and I are friends. I read it. I had the lovely opportunity to read it over a year ago when it was still in production. And, you know, she and I have been working together on these issues for several years. And I just think it's tremendous. You know, here is someone who grew up in and out of homelessness, experiencing violence in a very poor neighborhood in St. Louis, more than one neighborhood, and who made the long journey from police reform, jail killer cops to, no, we need to get the cops out of our lives in as many ways as we possibly can. And she does just an amazing job in two really important areas that I don't deal with directly enough in my book. One is just getting the cops, how ineffective policing is in keeping women safe and what we could be doing instead. And the other is the need to pair the abolition movement and the environmental movement, and understanding the connection between things like environmental racism and heavy-handed policing and corporate power. And so she just added so much to the conversation. I'm a huge fan, and I highly recommend people read her book, Becoming Abolitionists, with an S, plural.
Looking to getting her on here at some point, because
She's hard to track down.
Yeah, she is. I've emailed her many times. I'm just like, email me back, please. All right, but is there anything else you want to leave us with, or anything that we should know? Like anything on the left-right alliance of?
I'm certainly not. You know, my article about defunding the FBI was not an attempt to work across the aisle. It was merely a rhetorical opening to try to say, yeah, we need to defund the FBI, but not for any of the reasons that they're thinking. I mean, the right doesn't really want to defund the FBI. What they want to do is change the leadership to make it more fascistic and responsive to right-wing desires. They don't want to actually reduce its power. They just want to change the focus.
All right. Well, thank you, Professor Vitale. Vitale. I'm going to get it. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
But did either one of you two have one more thing you want to ask or say before he gets out of here?
No, I think I'm all set. Thank you very much for coming on.
Go read that book to that boy.
Yeah, go read the book. Go read the book. It's The End of Policing. We're gonna put another graphic up. Thank you, and hopefully we can get to talk to you again soon, and hopefully next time we talk to you, there's even more news about these kind of programs that are popping up all over the country and stuff like that.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I have a couple more things that we can go over if y'all want to.
That's what I've said before. Left wing, right wing, same bird. Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
love that.
Dude, I've been saying that for years. Well, since I was like maybe 11, because my grandpa always said it. But
Nice, base grandfather right there.
Exactly.
He was a psycho racist when he was young, though. Don't even get it. Like, listen, but no. In his older years, after I was born, he changed.
That's awesome, though. That's just a story. That's why I'm like, they focus so much cash and stuff into the status quo, because people can change. And that's why
old dogs can learn new tricks, man.
Exactly. And the fact that we keep getting, have a bunch of bad information. But people can change, though. And that's why they invest so much cash in making sure people can. Now, what I want to watch real fast with y'all, because this is terrible, and I need it to the Donovan Lewis, Columbus, Ohio. he was the police were doing a raid for a warrant that they had because he was, you know, just domestic violence or something like that, which is fucked up, but doesn't deserve for somebody to just, you know, get their life taken. So cops show up, and actually, let me get off of this. I have a YouTube video I have for that. Give me a second. But yeah, this happened yesterday, I think, because I just woke up to it, and it seemed like it was it seemed like it. Let me see. This happened yesterday, I think. So this is something I woke up to today. Okay. So we're going to watch this really fast.
The video of a Columbus police officer shooting and killing a man as police searched a warrant is drawing national attention and outrage from across the community. Today, we're hearing from the attorney for Donovan Lewis's family for the first time. Lewis was shot as he laid in bed. The BCI is leading the investigation into the incident. This afternoon, the family's lawyer says throughout this process, Lewis's character has been attacked, and he calls it sickening. He went on to say the family is demanding the city put a stop to what they call barbaric attacks by police. Luann Stoy was at that news conference where the Lewis family asked for immediate action by the city. Luann?
Well, Terry, the family's attorney, Rex Elliott, tells us that everyone should be outraged by this incident and that we should be demanding immediate reform. That news conference wrapping up here on Capitol Square just a short time ago. But check out this video. Our cameras rolling as the family came into the news conference. Loved ones obviously emotional at the time. Rex Elliott speaking on behalf of the family, saying these are the faces of just a few of the many people that have had their lives altered forever. Elliott critical of the city and CPD, saying there's been a lot of talk and not a lot of action following police-involved shootings, and whatever is being done right now is not working.
How many more lives are going to be lost to this type of reckless activity? How many more young Black lives will be lost? How many more families like Donovan's will need to appear in news conferences like this one before our leaders do enough to put a stop to these barbaric killings?
And we have reached out to Columbus Police for a response to those words. Emotional and heart-wrenching. We watched with the family the final moments of Donovan Lewis's life. Hard to watch, but Elliott says the video tells the story. The shooting taking place as Lewis woke to officers and a canine outside his bedroom. Police say they were serving an arrest warrant. Officer Ricky Anderson, the man who fired the shot, is on administrative leave. Ohio BCI investigating, which is protocol. Elliott says the family appreciates all the support from across the community, but he was stressing that any protests should be peaceful and respectful. Now, we
just like, you know, the peaceful and respectful taking of this man's life. So, you know, people should totally just be chill about it and respect property more than they respect a human life. The same mumbo jumbo that we always fucking hear.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much to say. There's not much else to say about that because we're going to keep until, you know, we're going to keep seeing it until it, you know, because the leaders aren't going to do shit. That's like what I hate. Like the news is always going to frame it like that. It's just like, and you hear the family talk about the fact that, you know, they're maligning his character. It's like probably the worst picture they've ever. They found the worst picture of him. Like make him like he's an ass. Like same old, same old. Unfortunately, and it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Big media, I'm sorry. They are 100% working for the cops, and I have proof of it. I will be happy to show it to you. I have proof that they straight up altered video. I'm making it look like this man had something in his hand, but I have the original video, and there is nothing in that man's hand, and they murdered him.
I heard that it was a vape pen?
Huh? No, he had nothing in his hand
Or
at
there
all.
was just nothing at all. Okay.
And even there was witnesses who said he didn't have no gun, and they pulled out you know, those toss throwing guns, you know, the ones they keep to like frame people with.
Yeah.
They ended up using one of those. I have video. They never pick a gun up off him. They never kick one away from his dead body. They roll up on him and they shot him fucking dead without even getting out of their car.
It was like the handgun. It was like the handgun that we were talking about Jalen Walker last month, like a couple months ago, when they said that he had that he was armed and that's why they were chasing him. And then like there was never a gun fired. They're like they're always lying. And of course we're gonna get internal investigation. So the people who did the fucking crime are gonna investigate themselves, and they're gonna be like, oh, we weren't guilty.
That's why I'm sorry. People need to learn how to do FOIAs and learn how to argue them when they get shut down. And learn how to talk to these people so that you can get their information. When Charlie Tilson was murdered, he starved and dehydrated to death in a fucking jail cell. His mother's lawyer couldn't even get the paperwork that I ended up getting without even having to like struggle for it. And that was proof that he was beaten severely before he was arrested. And she cried and told me, no, I was wondering where all them bruises came from and what that was all about. And I felt like shit because nobody was held accountable for that. And I'm sorry, but if you're in custody, you are 100% under the care of those freaking cops in that jail. They are 100% responsible for your life and your fucking well-being.
The moment you get handcuffed, the moment you get handcuffed, you're in the hands of the cops.
And if you die, it is on them. And every person who walked by his cell while he was begging for help for 9 fucking days, every one of them is guilty of his fucking murder.
Well, I'm not gonna go over there because we're getting like there's so many. Because like they have another one where we just have another man who got tased in Atlanta. He's paralyzed now after the way he hit his head, and he gets $100 million.
Hard.
He got $100 million, but come on now, what's $100 million?
Dude is still serving on the force.
He has 20. He needs 24/7 care, and that's going to like, it's just it's.
And that cop is still working on
just like the cops who took. I don't remember where this was because like we said, it's all the time. We saw this man get arrested a couple weeks ago. They just threw him in the back of the car. His neck got snapped because it hit the door with the way they turned in the car, and when they still pulled him out. He was like, I can't move, and they were like, yeah, whatever. Pulled him on the wheelchair, and it turns out he's completely paralyzed.
Dude, what the fuck?
We can't.
We're so powerless. I'm sorry. Do you guys feel as powerless as I do? You have no idea. Almost everybody in your feed right now, they're all cop watchers, or they're all First Amendment auditors, or they're all activists of some kind who have to deal with the cops on a daily fucking basis. Joe Cool gets harassed more than any dude I've ever seen in my life, and you gotta watch some of his videos. He goes off. It is like hood poetry. This hood poetry when he goes off on these cops.
All right, subscribe to Joe Cool. We just subscribed to Joe Cool, and you should too.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, it's. I don't know. I feel powerless at this point. I don't know if it's because of what happened with Eric and him being gone, and it kind of just like drained the life out of me when he got arrested. I mean, 12 years for his hopes and prayers and thoughts and wishes. Are you fucking kidding me? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's just I'm drained. I'm exhausted. I have no faith in anything. I don't even bother with petitions anymore. I deal with my own city council, and they can't stand me. They do everything they can to block me from being in that live feed. They do not want my voice to be heard at all because they don't like it when I speak. Because I go off. I get in that chief of police face. I don't give a fuck who you are. I'm not going to take your crap. I'm not going to take your bullshit lies either. I won't do it. And since it's a small town, I know the mayor personally. I knew him when I was a kid. He went to my church. And I know lots of things about him, and I will throw everything I've got in his face.
I just don't understand. I don't understand. Like, it's just I only, that's why, like, you know, we just played the video, like you said, does anybody feel powerless? It's like you see that and you're just like, I am just a human against against all of this like strategic mechanized warfare on people,
That's exactly what it is.
Like,
and,
what
the
am I gonna do?
FBI, the CIA, the government officials themselves, the police, you know, your city council, all these, they're all here to keep a thumb on us and make us conform and like comply or die.
And the worst, and since they're not, and the thing is, since it's like not working abroad like it used to, all these countries are starting to kick us out and be like, "Fuck you," or get like fucking protection from bigger new superpowers. We're like turning all of our fucking bullshit on ourselves even worse now. So it's like getting worse inside the states because it's like we can't bully around like the world like we used to. So we have to bully we're bullying the citizens even more. Even not like we weren't being bullied already. It's just fucking tenfold.
Yeah, saw a cop kill a person and get 18 months. Eric Brandt, 12 years for words. When they can take down Eric Brandt, mother effing Brandt, who the city of Denver spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars trying to take this activist down, and they couldn't do it. And bam, on hopes and prayers and thoughts and wishes, and a damn judge retiring the same day as his final court date and his sentencing to crap is what got him fucking locked away.
Let me give me 1 second. I'm about to.
And I'm sure that cop got special treatment too in that prison for 18 months.
Oh, you know he did.
Yeah.
There are rapist cops who have been convicted that are out there copping again.
Exactly. We always see that. Like, literally, they kill somebody and they go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Paid vacation.
Like, exactly.
Yeah,
a legit paid vacation. Like, let me. I'm gonna share something. I'm gonna share something about Eric Brandt for people who didn't know.
Can step in.
This seems biased.
Security has been stepped up for judges in Denver because of a local activist. Eric Brandt has posted videos calling on people to kill judges at random. Sources
tell. So, no, you want to fact check this for us?
He did not. He did not. What he said is, I hope, I wish, I pray. He never asked anybody to do shit. What he said was fucked up. But, none of it was a viable threat. None of it was to incite anybody to do anything. He was bitching and complaining, and he was doing it in a very, very, very like careful way. Yeah, he looked like he was freaking the fuck out. He always looks like that. He does it for the shock factor, because he wants to shock people into paying attention to what it is that is going on. He is a veteran. He was in the Navy. He has been an advocate for the homeless in Denver for 14 or 15 years or some crap like that. He has won, literally, I mean, like I said, they have spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars trying to get him out of their hair, because he has proof of them doing super shady shit. I mean, super shady shit. But again, you have to have an FBI who gives a crap in order for anything to happen to these fools other than the public to know about it.
Exactly. Let me, I want to see him real fast, what he has to say, because I want to hear what he has to say real fast, and then I'll mute it.
Shoes. Eric Brandt is an agitator.
Define shoes. What is a shoe?
Constantly challenging police and authority figures in the metro area.
You think I can't come in here?
By his count, he's been arrested and jailed more than 100 times for his actions. But it's his words that now have judges, police, and prosecutors concerned.
They won't let that fly?
He was recently thrown out of Denver's downtown courthouse for not wearing shoes.
No justice, no peace.
He live streamed the incident. As he left the courthouse, his rant continued.
This is why I now advocate for the random shooting of judges. Judges have absolute immunity. Nothing that they do can they be held accountable for. The only way to hold tyrants like that accountable is to execute them. Shoot random judges. And don't forget to shoot the police.
I mean, I'm not saying theoretically.
That wasn't even the video he got in trouble for. This ain't even the video he got in trouble for.
Look at these motherfuckers. 1 second.
Offensive and irresponsible.
Well, I don't think we want to welcome and celebrate people calling for assassination of public officials.
But Zandsberg said he thinks Brandt is protected by the First Amendment, but barely, because his threat lacked specifics.
So is that why he's in jail for 12 years?
Yes. The judge did the exact same thing to Eric that Eric did to the other judge, the one that was.
I think it's funny the fact that it's like, oh, he put a hit on us. You have all the guns and all of the bodyguards that can grab him out the streets anytime you want to.
And they did. They snagged him up they showed up in a van with no markings on it, jumped out, grabbed him, and threw him in a van and sped off one day. Joe, you remember this, right? And it was terrifying. I mean, we didn't know if they were going to kill him or what. Because trust and believe, they wanted him dead. And if they could have gotten away with it, there would have been, if he always had cameras on him, and they were always filming. He was always recording. You always film the police. If you are running late, who cares? You're already late. If you see someone pulled over, you pull over and you film that shit. Even if nothing happens, you film that shit. Because their body cameras are not going to save that person's ass in that car.
No, it's not, because most people aren't even going to see the shit that was on the body camera that we're just talking about.
Exactly.
It's like what? Yeah, but I think we might be running up a little bit on time. I have to go check on the babies. But Noli, thank you for coming on again tonight. Like, we definitely needed you here for that, and for that fire and everything, and that was awesome. And we're gonna have it back on because I want to go over some of the stuff you do have, like some of the documents. We need to go over some of those stories and whatnot. They need to be shared.
Yes.
But like we said, open door. Anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome to.
Don't say that. I'll be here every day. I love you guys. I love you guys so much.
We love you too. Andrew, anything you want to say before we head out?
Not too much. If you haven't, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all I got.
That was a great episode, and thanks everybody for joining. And we'll see you next time. And just share this with your friends, fam, and let them know the truth going on out there about all this cop bullshit. And we will be back with Copaganda Part 4 at some point. All right.